Something I've noticed over the years is that almost every anime I've seen has that organization. Whether it be the Akatsuki from Naruto or the Espada from Bleach, it always seems like one of the most iconic parts of many shows are the evil organizations present in them. Groups of formidable opponents for our heroes to face. In the case of One Punch Man, that would be the Monster Association, and more specifically, the executives of said association, also called Cadres. Today we're going to take a look at them and rank them from weakest to strongest. This isn't an original topic, far from it, but I do believe I have some things to add here and there, especially after my latest reread of the Monster Association arc. Everybody views the series differently, so I'm going to give you my scaling for them and share my opinion on who would win certain matchups. For the record, I'm just here to have fun and talk about a series I enjoy. If you disagree with anything I say, please go right ahead. Like I said, everyone has their own takes. But without any further ado, let's get straight into the video. Starting off in low tier, at number 14 is Gums. Gums' only real feats are beating Pig God, who has very little feats himself, and chomping through one of suppressed Tatsumaki's barriers. But it specifically stated Tatsumaki was using very little energy for the barriers, so Psychos couldn't detect them, so this isn't much of a feat. It does, however, put Gums' biting strength above a punch from a fused Black Ass who couldn't punch through the same shield from Tatsumaki. Gums' scaling sort of caps off here though, as he gets wrecked by a redirected punch from Fuhrer Ugly, gets ran through by Bang, blown up by Fatigue Genos, and Tank Top Master can resist his bite force on 2 separate occasions for a while. Gums does have some good regen, but overall he is definitely the weakest cadre in my eyes. At number 13, I've got Base Fuhrer Ugly. Now, him being above Gums is pretty self-explanatory, seeing as Gums ate Ugly and then Ugly killed him. A redirected punch from Fuhrer Ugly wrecked Gums and he tanked his own redirected punch, meaning both his attack potency and his durability are superior to Gums. Fuhrer Ugly is also able to scare a fatigued and almost gadgetless Child Emperor, as well as being able to bully Nerf to My Mask. Ugly is also able to mangle Tank Top Master with only a few strikes, further solidifying his placement above Gums, who was not able to do the same. Fuhrer Ugly was also able to resist a binding attempt from Tatsumaki, but that Tatsumaki was so fatigued that she could barely stand at that point, so that's not really that impressive. And he does have the ability to grow stronger the more humiliated he feels, but overall he is definitely still the second weakest cadre in my opinion. Moving over to mid-tier, this is where things get complicated because a lot of the characters here are matchup dependent. So I'll be ranking them based off of how strong I think they are, but I'll mention the possible ways lower ranking characters could maybe beat them one-on-one. Number 12 on my list is Black Ass. His performance in battle is really matchup dependent, but in basic scaling, a single cell from him is stated to be on the level of an A-class hero, but cannot damage Darkshine at all and gets killed by the thousands by people like Spring Mustachio, Ion, and the Council of Swordsmen members. Black Ass has enough attack potency to damage extremely fatigued Genos and Tatsumaki, as well as base Atomic Samurai, but none of these characters are known to possess particularly remarkable durability by this point. Black Ass cells can also dodge swings from and slightly damage base Metal Bat. He was also somehow able to perceive Saitama punching Cosmic Gyoro, so his reaction might actually be cracked. And this is kind of supported when Black S can perceive Tatsumaki substituting when the Homeless Emperor cannot. So Black S does consistently have good reaction speed, but his combat speed just doesn't scale anywhere near that level. It's Black S's numbers that give him the edge most of the time, and it did allow him to perform impressive feats such as holding off the entire S-Class at the same time. However, against a lot of the Cadres, there's either nothing he can do to damage them, or they just straight up have counters to him. Against Evil Natural Water, for example, I actually think Black S would probably lose over time due to not having any way to kill water, and water having tons of time to absorb moisture from the air to grow faster and stronger, and eventually just overwhelm Black S, as weird as that sounds. Speaking of which, at number 11, I've put Base Evil Natural Water. His only scaling is beating the Disciple Trio, getting reacted to by Base Child Emperor, getting reacted to by Nyan and Atomic Samurai, and getting blown apart by Darkshine. However, he does have some solid strength, being capable of piercing Child Emperor and being able to push Darkshine back a few meters. If allowed to grow over a period of time, Evil Natural Water can get bigger and become a lot faster, as seen when it is able to react to Monster Gyoro later in the fight, but at the start it's not very powerful. Still, no one below him on the list has the ability to kill it, and it can just drown everyone or last long enough to actually build up its speed and strength. Up next at number 10 is Vomited Fuhrer Ugly. Now, this guy is pretty weird in terms of scaling. He's able to physically react to and clash with Darkshine. Their fists collide and Ugly's arms don't splatter all over the place, so he should have relative strength and durability to Darkshine, who is far more impressive than any of the Cadres earlier on the list. Granted, the durability part is a little weird as Darkshine actually has better durability than attack potency, but still, bare minimum, Acid Ugly's durability would scale to Darkshine's strength. Fuhrer now has acid capable of melting through Darkshine to the point that you can actually see the man's bones exposed, and this acid is potent enough to permanently kill Black S clones. Black S does seem confident in being able to actually kill Fuhrer Ugly by surrounding him from afar and not letting him get nourishment, but Black S hasn't shown any feats that would put him on the level of Darkshine speed-wise, and I think Ugly, if he wants to, can probably just go around catching and slurping up Black S cells pretty much forever, unless Black S leaves a few million cells to stall Ugly while the rest just run away and hide, I guess. Still, overall, Ugly definitely scales higher than Black S. Against Evil Natural Water, he could just blow him apart like Darkshine did, and then splash tons of acid on the few bits of water that remain. Although if water somehow lasts long enough to actually hit Ugly, it might actually dissolve the acid on Ugly's body and decrease its concentration, so that's funny to think about. Last up in mid-tier, number 9 is Homeless Emperor, who is perhaps the weirdest Cadre to scale, but I think it's most consistent for him to be here. So first things first, he is consistently compared to Black S, and Psychos even thinks that Black S and Homeless Emperor teaming up can beat anyone. I don't know if she's including a Orochi or not, but personally I just can't see that happening. Either way, his bombs are extremely weird. For one, they're not actually that fast. Nyan, Spring Mustachio, and Child Emperor's Dogman robots are able to react to them without much issue. And their attack potency is also extremely inconsistent, as a blanket shield from a robot protected Child Emperor from a massive spirit bomb, but then regular old bombs can just wreck Fuhrer Ugly and visibly damage him, the same Fuhrer Ugly who scales to Darkshine via their little scuffle. And those same bombs can also apparently get blocked by regular old swords from A-class heroes, but they're threatening enough for Fatigue Tatsumaki to dodge them instead of tanking them with their shields, so that's also weird. Personally, I'd say that the orbs should just have varying levels of power depending on who Homeless fights, and Homeless does make a weird remark when assaulting the A-class heroes where he says, "It's hard to find the right firepower for a satisfying kill." So it could be that he's just, for whatever reason, really picky about using just the right amount of power to kill an opponent, and he's just trying to determine what amount to use against the swordsman. But then earlier in the same page, Homeless remarks that Mustachio and Nyan are tough, so I don't know. Still, I believe Homeless can just regulate the strength of his orbs, and that's why they seem so inconsistent. When it comes to matchups, Homeless Emperor is a glass cannon, and it's stated a single off-guard attack from Black S would be enough for him. But when he fights, most of the time Homeless has energy orbs floating around him, and he has pretty much inexhaustible energy reserves given to him by God. So if he just stands in the middle of the battleground with hundreds of power spheres swirling around him, I can't really see any of the Cadres so far getting through, as the orbs can physically block attacks. He also states that he can just nuke the battlefield to kill all of Black S if he splits too much, so his range and scale should be very high. Overall, if both parties start the fight prepared and on guard, I just can't see any of the Cadres below Homeless Emperor actually getting to him, unless you argue Black S just keeps rushing Emperor until he needs to sleep. But even then, I'd argue Homeless would just kill every single black ass present. Even if he doesn't kill every single cell, if he kills all the black ass bodies on the battlefield, there would be no more black ass to keep multiplying. He can also just vaporize evil natural water, and we already pretty much saw how Homeless versus Vomited Fear Ugly played out. Advancing to high mid tier, there's actually only one character here at number 8, and that is Gouketsu. This is a pretty controversial character, and he's very interesting to scale. His main feat is wrecking Genos so bad that he thinks Gouketsu is the strongest monster he's ever faced, and that multiple S-class heroes along with Saitama need to team up to defeat him. By this point, he's seen Darkshine's full power in a simulation in one of the audiobooks, and he had seen Carnage Kabuto, who pushed Darkshine to his limit in said simulation, so Gouketsu should be above Darkshine by that logic. This is pretty consistent, as Gyoro states that multiple S-class heroes teaming up would only give Gouketsu a hard time, and when she sees Gouketsu taken out, it's almost like a wake-up call for her that taking down the Hero Association will be harder than she originally expected. So he's consistently painted as a powerhouse who is above the level of most S-class heroes. You could go a step further and try to argue that Gyoro asking who did this might imply that she doesn't believe a single hero she knows could kill Gouketsu, and putting him above powerhouses like Elder Centipede because of that. But I think this is pretty easy to counter. Gyoro was observing people like Tatsumaki on other battlefields, and she knew they weren't anywhere near Gouketsu's location. So when she sees Gouketsu's dead body, she asks who could have done this. All the strong people were nowhere near close to here. Apparently there's something else I should be worried about. This isn't going to be as easy as I thought. So yeah, I don't think Gouketsu's lore is that crazy. But other than that, his feats are against either completely featless characters like Bakuzan or against characters who, compared to the people on this list, are absolute fodder, like Suiryu. Gouketsu is also a highly skilled martial artist, and his 4 eyes grant him better perception than most monsters. He also splits apart clouds with the shockwaves of his punches, but that's not really that scalable, and the calculations for this feat aren't really that impressive either. For matchups, Gouketsu can generate shockwaves with his punches, so he doesn't actually need to get close to Homeless or Ugly to damage them. He could just do that from afar, and he scales above them stat-wise, as they're mostly on the level of Darkshine, whereas Gouketsu should be above that tier. Homeless might be able to damage him, but again, I believe a single shockwave from Gouketsu would be enough to kill Homeless. Evil Natural Water would just be blown apart, and Black Ass does have a good chance of outlasting Gouketsu, but it's equally as possible that Gouketsu would just start blitzing around and one-shotting all the cells with punches and shockwaves. And if he does this early enough in the fight, it's possible he could kill all the Black Ass bodies and stop them from multiplying. But overall, in terms of scaling, Gouketsu is definitely a tier above the rest, and I wish we could have seen more of him to get a better estimate of his power. But for now, this is where he stands in my eyes. Now ascending to high tier, these next 2 characters are incredibly close to one another in strength. So close in fact that I can't actually talk about them separately. In order to compare them properly, I have to talk about the both of them at the same time. So I'll just list them now and we can go from there. Number 7 and 6 in no particular order are Elder Centipede and Overgrown Rover. To talk about these guys, we first have to talk about Bang and Gyoro. So, Spiral Gyoro, in his fight against Darkshine, is able to match Darkshine's full power and makes him bleed from his nose and mouth, as well as causes him to visibly feel pain numerous times. He then fully monsterizes, which is an enormous boost, potentially over 10 times or more depending on how you argue, based on the fact that normal people can increase their power so much by monsterizing that they can one-shot people who could one-shot them while they were still human. Gyoro then masters the Awakening Breath, a technique which pushes the body to its very limits and attains the Exploding Heart Release Fist, which is a technique that surpasses the body's limitations entirely. And with all that, Bang is still able to keep up with and match Gyoro. He trades blows with him and is able to dish out some damage too. Now, why is all this important? Let's cover the 2 Cadres in chronological order. Firstly, Elder Centipede takes the Roaring Aura Sky-Ripping Fist to the face, gets pounded by Bang and Bomb with numerous punches, regenerates, and is so powerful that Bomb, who should be aware of Bang's full power with the Awakening Breath, and aware of techniques like the Crossfang Dragon Slayer Fist, which was used against Rover later on, blatantly says, "We cannot defeat him." Genos goes on a suicide attack and manages to deal some damage from the inside, but the monster regenerates that too. After that, Bang grabs Genos and tells his brother to grab the knocked out heroes and run. And he only stops to face Elder Centipede again when civilians are put at risk. He then says it's all or nothing, I will expend the last of my life force, and prepares to use the Awakening Breath. Note that it's unclear if he could have actually beaten Elder Centipede or not here. Bomb seemed to think he couldn't, and Bang himself never says he's going to kill Elder Centipede. Just that it's all or nothing, he has to try. This is the same Bang who could fight on par with Monster Gyoro, who was bare minimum 2 one-shot tiers above Dark Shine. Elder Centipede is also so strong that Gyoro, who can read power levels, thinks that only Blast, King, Tatsumaki, and Metal Knight have what it takes to put Elder Centipede down. However, Genos is able to dodge hits from Elder Centipede and damage his face, so Elder definitely isn't that fast and has a weak spot on his face, but he can regenerate, so that weakness is kind of mitigated. Moving on to Rover, he is a weird one. Firstly, he encounters Gyoro, and this is going to sound bad, but he actually does extremely poorly in this fight. At first, Gyoro cannot do anything to Rover, and it's implied the dog can one-shot Gyoro, but then the martial artist quickly adapts and is able to tank numerous blasts from Rover with minimal damage sustained. He even takes a beam at point-blank range and survives well enough to fight Orochi right afterwards. The only thing that I can really say in defense of Rover is that it's possible Gyoro is specifically adapted to take the heat of the blast, and it is stated that Gyoro is heat resistant during his fight with Orochi right after this, so you could say Rover's attacks deal significantly reduced damage to Gyoro than they would to someone else, but it's still not an impressive showing for Rover by any means. Gyoro is also able to fight on par with Rover when it comes to speed, as he's reacting to Rover and darting around the battlefield at comparable speeds. Next up, Rover survives a punch from Saitama, but it's pretty explicitly implied and stated that he was holding back because he didn't see Rover as a monster, so that feat is not really that scalable either, though the punch did cause enormous shockwaves. But then Rover does a comeback scaling-wise and takes on Bang and Bomb. He barrages them with blasts, but they are able to dodge them all. Then Bomb remarks that Rover seems to be already wounded, Fubuki claims he's the strongest monster she's ever encountered, and Bang says that he must be among the Monster Association's strongest. Rover is able to sneak up on them and attack them, showing some decent intelligence. Bang and Bomb prepare to block, a big explosion occurs, and it's revealed that Fubuki protected them with her shield. Now, Fubuki thinks that just one of his blasts can end the martial arts brothers, and Bang and Bomb are surprised that they were not harmed by the attack. Both of these statements imply that Rover can at the very least damage Bang and Bomb. However, Fubuki's comment is blatantly unreliable, as she does not actually know how strong Bang and Bomb are. She's shocked when she finds out how strong they are later in the fight. Bang's comment is a lot more trustworthy, but the thing is, he's basing this on the destructive capacity of Rover's blasts, as he would not know their actual attack potency. Bang and Bomb are also capable of straight up catching and holding one of Rover's blasts with their bare hands before redirecting it, and their skin does not get burned at all, so the heat from these blasts isn't actually that intense. So while I have my reasons to doubt both of these statements, it is consistently implied in the scene that Rover can damage Bang and Bomb. Regardless of that, Bang and Bomb are then fortified by Fubuki, and it's not exactly clear how big of a difference this makes, but Fubuki does say you should be able to move a little faster, which implies the boost is not that big, but Bang himself says I pack a punch again, which does seem to imply the boost is quite noticeable. Rover then proves to be extremely durable as he takes the Crossfang Dragon Slayer Fist from Bang and Bomb, which is stated to be stronger than the attack that tore apart Elder Centipede's shell, and Rover takes no damage from this. There is a whole debate about which attack is stronger, but I won't go into that here. Regardless of that, when Rover gets up, Bomb remarks he's tough, and Bang says it's impeding our progress, we gotta teach it to sit. Note how, in stark contrast to Elder Centipede, here the brothers don't say they cannot beat Rover, and they don't start retreating or running or anything like that. Bang doesn't say, I am about to expend my life force to possibly maybe defeat this thing. Instead, he says, we're gonna have to teach it to sit. Not to mention that when Elder Centipede's shell gets broken, it's actually stated by Murata that he was about to molt anyway, so it's kind of questionable if Bang and Bomb could break its shell when it wasn't about to break by itself anyway. And you also have to consider that Elder Centipede actually grew larger and quite possibly stronger due to the molting. Murata even referred to it as Evolved Elder Centipede on one of his streams. With Rover, Bang and Bomb think he's tough, but they also don't see taking Rover down as being outside of what they can pull off. However, Rover is stated to be weakened in this fight after getting punched by Saitama, and the Old Masters are amped by Fubuki's psychic abilities. It's unknown to what extent both of these factors really amp and nerf the Old Man and Rover respectively. So, summing up, a stronger Bang and Bomb were pretty confident in being able to take down Rover, and a weaker Bang and Bomb were blatantly saying they can't beat Elder Centipede, so it's pretty hard to really figure out who's more impressive here. I will say that neither one of these guys has the attack potency to harm the other, unless Rover specifically goes for Elder's face, but it's unclear if Rover could figure out he needs to attack that spot specifically, and Elder can regenerate any damage taken, as well as keep his face high enough to be out of range of the blast. Rover is also definitely faster than Elder Centipede due to scaling to Gyoro, who scales above the Genos who was able to react to Elder Centipede, but that doesn't really matter if Rover can't put Elder Centipede down. This is honestly just a stalemate match, but overall I am inclined to lean toward Elder Centipede being just a smidge more impressive personally, due to his scaling to or above Awakening Breath Bang, who Rover has no scaling to. Like I said before, I think these two are incredibly close to one another when it comes to overall battle prowess, and I think both of them scale high above all the other Cadres mentioned thus far, but personally, my list would go Overgrown Rover at number 7, and Elder Centipede at number 6. Moving on to number 5, still in the same tier, it's Gyoro. Now, I feel like this thing is in equal parts recognized and downplayed by the community. Many rate Gyoro as one of the stronger Cadres due to some lore implications, while others say she does not have enough feats to actually be placed this high and is one of the weakest Cadres. I've even seen people claiming she's demon level. Based off of the rank I've given here, you can probably tell which side I'm on personally. So let's get into Gyoro. She is a weird character to scale because she has so little showings, but from the little we do know, we can say this for certain. Gyoro is often credited by literally everyone to be able to read the strength level of monsters. She can gauge power levels, and she thinks that Elder Centipede can only be taken down by Blast, King, Metal Knight, and Tatsumaki. She believes Tatsumaki can take down Elder Centipede, and she believes that she herself can take down Tatsumaki. Now, obviously Tatsumaki was suppressed the entire time Gyoro had her eyes on her, so she didn't know what the Esper's full power was like, and she did get absolutely bodied by her in their actual fight. But the important thing is, Gyoro is confident she can beat suppressed Tatsumaki, who she believes can beat Elder Centipede. Unlike Tatsumaki, Elder Centipede can't really suppress his power from what we know, so Gyoro's estimate of his power level should be at least somewhat accurate. The common counter-argument to this is that Gyoro is just making a miscalculation, overestimating herself, and so on. But, can I ask where's the proof for that? She has specifically said multiple times to be able to read power levels, and the only time she messed up in that department is when she came up against Tatsumaki, who can suppress and hide her true power. The only argument I can think of for Psycho's ability to gauge power to be called into question is that statement about Black S and Homeless Emperor being able to beat everyone if they work together. But even that can be true if you look at it from a certain way, and it's something she says in the heat of the moment. She's kind of in a panic on what to do about Tatsumaki, so I don't really see it as being a very well thought out statement. Another thing that can be brought up to downscale Gyoro is that Gyoro is able to start moving through her telekinetic bindings, but it's specifically stated that Gyoro just adapted to the psychic power while Gyoro was going on a monologue, similarly to how he developed heat resistance against Rover. Gyoro just naturally became resistant to Gyoro's main method of attack, and Gyoro then goes on to say, "I can't waste energy dealing with this, Orochi, come handle this." She's not saying she can't win, it's just highly likely that she'd need to expend a decent amount of energy to beat a person who is specifically energy resistant, and she just doesn't want to do that right before the big battle with the heroes. And getting no-diffed by Tatsumaki is not an anti-feat when it comes to ranking Cadres. If you've seen any of my videos on Tatsumaki, you'll know that she can just snap her fingers and one-shot every Cadre at once, in my opinion. So yeah. Tatsumaki also credits Gyoro as being pretty strong during their battle, and Fubuki shudders at the amount of energy Tatsumaki outputs to actually beat Gyoro, saying it's rare for her sister to use this much power, and that her opponent must be strong. Another thing worth noting is that even after getting no-diffed, Gyoro pulls out a move that she believes will kill Tatsumaki, implying that her suicide move is a one-shot tier above her actual strength, and Tatsumaki gives her credit for this attack, stating that she uses her powers in a very refined way. Overall, Gyoro has some good hacks with her telekinesis, and should comfortably scale above the other Cadres so far, in my opinion. Moving on to number 4, still in the same tier, is Psychos. It's stated Gyoro is nothing in comparison to her, and she does way better than Gyoro against Tatsumaki, so this placement should be pretty self-explanatory. The only thing I've mentioned is I've heard people argue that Rover should scale above Psychos, as he tends to submit to stronger beings than himself, and he defies Psychos when she tries to order him around. But the thing is, we know for a fact that Rover cannot sense power since he tried fighting Saitama, and he probably never fought Psychos or Gyoro, so he wouldn't really know how strong they are. I don't really see any reason for them to have fought in the past. To him, Psychos is just some rando who is trying to boss him around. If she is stronger than him, he doesn't know it, so he wouldn't submit. Another thing people try to argue is that Psychos tried to summon Rover to distract Tatsumaki, and that would imply that Rover is impressive enough to distract Tatsumaki for a bit. But the thing is, if you read the page, you can actually see Psychos is in a panic, and she's just running through her mind for searching for any Cadre, pretty much. She's asking, isn't there anybody who can distract Tornado? Anybody, any big shot. She would have summoned anybody. But she just remembered that Rover was allowed to run free, so she just tries to summon him because he should be available. All this to say, I don't think Rover scales above Psychos personally. And last up in high tier is Golden S. Now, this guy is weird to scale depending on how you view him. He could be either on the same level as Elder Centipede or Rover, or he could be miles above everybody in this tier. There's a lot to say about Golden S, and I really want to make an entirely separate video on him. But for now, I'll say this. Going off of feats, lore, and statements, Golden S only goes up to around, like I said, Elder Centipede and Rover level. However, he does have a calc that would put him at multi-continental. If that is the case, then he should be leagues above everybody here, or you upscale all the characters in this tier to multi-continental, something which I personally do not believe to be true. I do think it's possible to make the calc consistent with the lore, and I will go over that in a separate video about Golden S specifically, but for now, I'll just place him at number 3 on this Cadre ranking. Moving on to top tier, number 2 on the list is Platinum S, who I'm pretty sure I don't need to convince anyone is way stronger than all the others on the list so far. Golden S has been sort of speculated to be near Platinum's level due to their cell counts being similar, but again, I'll go over my thoughts on that in a separate video. For this video, Platinum is just far stronger and faster than anybody here. So yeah, pretty self-explanatory placement like I said before. But that was the ranking. I hope you enjoyed, I hope you had fun, and maybe learned something new. I did originally plan to include Orochi, Sage Centipede, Sairochi, and Evil Ocean Water in the video as well, but it's already long enough, and there's enough stuff on these guys to have entirely separate videos made on the various matchups with them, so I'm leaving them for the future for the time being. Other than that, be sure to comment, like, subscribe, and all that, and I hope to see you in the next video. Goodbye. Oh, and number one's Nyan Cat.